Well, we are excited for another As the Expert moment. This is my Dr. G with My Goal Inc. And part of our monthly programming has been invite special guests or people who are really bright, who are just absolutely intelligent, to download all their knowledge to us. So we are in our month of November, which is Thanksgiving month. November is one of my absolute favorite months because it's kind of getting close to Christmas. Not exactly Christmas yet because, if you celebrate Christmas or if you celebrate Hanukkah or any other holiday. So right before that is that season where you hopefully come together and you have some good reason to say thank you. Thank you because we have life, and especially this year, knowing how far we've come. A year ago by now, we were all still huddled in the middle of a pandemic, wondering what's going on, and people couldn't do Thanksgiving. Remember last year, you had to like limit how many people were at your table. I mean, for me, it was just like, wow, how did we get to a place where you can't even gather together? But thank the Lord, you can actually do that now. I was reading an article the other day, and it was saying that the hottest thing flying off the shelves beyond turkey is actually COVID test. People
Yes,
are,
that's funny you said that. My brother, who we're going to spend Thanksgiving with, is having us all get tested before we walk into his door. That's
yes, and if you're not, they can test you, quarantine you. 15 minutes later, find out if this test is positive or not.
really.
Yes. So people are buying your clothes. I mean, who'd have thought, right?
Yeah.
So people are finding ways to say, let's celebrate and let's do it safely. So I am super excited that we have Thanksgiving coming up. And because we're thinking about dinner and food and all the exciting things, is why this particular topic that we're going to do today is actually hopefully will inspire all of you guys watching us. If you're catching us now, I'll have her introduce herself, but I just want to welcome those of you who are watching us live on Facebook or who are watching us on YouTube or who will catch this later. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. You got to tell yourself, I'm going to have a great Thanksgiving no matter what, because there's a reason to be thankful. There's many, many, many reasons to be thankful. And for our families out there watching, I want to welcome you. So welcome, Chris. Chris has been with the My Go family for a long time, and I was cracking up because we just had our gala event last week. Um, and she posted on Facebook a video of she and her husband dancing on this 360. And then on the video, she goes, for those of you, this is as far as how far you're going to get in getting George. Hi, George. Speaking the person I'm talking about, to seeing George dance. So, Chris, you want to talk a little bit about that before we get into introducing our guest?
Oh, I don't know if there's much to say. He just never
I
gets.
don't dance.
He doesn't dance, and that was really, mostly, as far as he would get to dancing. So it was cute.
It was cute, right?
Yeah.
So for folks who are starting to go out now, instead of a regular photo booth, now what they have at events is this little circular thing that you stand on and it rotates you around the room and then they play a song so you can kind of dance and it takes pictures of you dancing and it's so cute because and this our theme for the gala was time to rise and shine. And so the song that they had is that it's my time to shine. So people are just like bobbing to it. You can even just stand there and it makes it look like you're really dancing. So it just I share that just to make the point that we have a lot of reasons to celebrate this year. And I want you to not only think about the things to be joyful about, but think about preparing meals that will make it so delicious and building a table that is healthy and that you guys get to enjoy. So, in thinking about that is why I invited my guest. Um, Deb Bessen is one of the most brilliant people I know, and I don't use those terminologies randomly. And I work with her. I'm privileged to work with her at Holy Name Medical Center. And so, I just reach out to her and say, hey, Deb, do you mind doing a topic for us? And here she is. She said yes. So I'm going to just invite her to introduce herself, and she's going to introduce the topic that she's going to be doing. So Deb, welcome to the microphone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Genevieve. Brilliance. Wow. My name is Debbie Bessen. I've been a nutritionist slash dietitian for over 25 years. I have a lot of experience in different areas of nutrition, one being oncology, one being outpatient, one being just general. I really like to keep up on the research on what's going on out there, because as you probably hear and see on these little news bits, it changes all the time. So I really try to get a handle on that so I can explain it to my patients, because they get confused and I don't blame them. It's very confusing. So I'm the outpatient nutrition manager here at Holy Name. So I not only see outpatients one-on-one, but we also do a lot of programming. So I was really happy that Genevieve asked me to do this, because this is what I do. I really like to educate, and, she mentioned Thanksgiving. And just so you know, everything that I'm going to say here, yes, it's all going to be about healthy diets. We're going to talk about, chronic disease prevention. We're going to touch a little bit tiny bit at the end on autistic research, the research that marrying nutrition. You're going to see a little food demo. But my thing, and my patients hear me say often, is frequency. And habits. And so when I talk about nutrition, it doesn't mean, 24/7 you're going to be eating a healthy diet. So when Thanksgiving comes around, enjoy whatever you're eating. If it's good, if it's not so good, or if it's really bad, just enjoy it. So just that being said, I really want to be clear that, I'm very pro, I do walk the walk, but I also enjoy pizza and desserts and just, all right. So we know where we're going. I'm not one of those dietitians. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to be talking about building a healthy kitchen. So we're going to be doing a lot today. We're going to be learning about some marketing slogans. We're going to be talking about clean eating. What is it? Processed foods. And we're actually going to do a little kitchen, a kitchen kind of redo. We're going to do a little supermarket tour. So get ready. Okay, here we go. Building a healthy kitchen. So what is clean? This is what we're going to be reviewing. I know I just said it, but just to say it again, we're going to be talking about what is clean eating. We're going to be looking at your kitchen and how we can maximize the areas in your kitchen to make it as healthy as possible. We're going to be doing a little virtual grocery store. We're going to help your kids get involved and a little educated on nutrition and health, and how it affects your body. And then I'm going to show you a little 2-minute cooking demo on something that you and your kids can actually make together. And you'll get that recipe. And I also came up with a little booklet of very kid-friendly recipes. So I'm going to give that to Genevieve, and she can email out to the whole group. Okay. So how many food decisions do you think that you make in a day? So many people say, 2, 3, 4, but actually it's closer to 200 decisions that you make in a day regarding your food choices. And those decisions are very much manipulated by what's around you and food marketing, of course, and social media. Okay. So this is one of my favorite food marketing plans. This is pretty old. It's for pork. The Pork Association had created this, and I thought it was brilliant, although it really keeps me on my toes trying to educate everybody that actually pork is not a white meat, it is a red meat. So this is just one example of many, and if you're thinking about it now, you're probably thinking of your own examples of how marketing, can really skew the truth or confuse you as to what is what. So what is clean eating? Clean foods are foods that are closest to their natural state. Things like fruits and vegetables, whole grains, meats that are not processed, and there is some processing, of course, things like freezing and canning and baking and drying, and those are considered processing, but they're also considered clean foods. Of course, there's unhealthy food processing, and just for a little bit of history, 50 to 75 years ago, pretty much when, or maybe even a little bit longer, when food use was industrialized, industrialization, where we started just peeling, dicing, and having some natural preservatives, because that could be good for you. It does make your food, stay a little bit longer. But now it's a whole new ballgame. And the processing includes a lot of ingredients, many that you don't know what it is, how to pronounce it. You can even see that in the ingredient label. There's a lot more percentage of processed foods in our diet, like fast foods, snacks, and foods, and a lot less whole and natural foods. In 1910, 10% of our food supply was factory refined or treated with additives, and now over 80% of our food supply is refined and treated with additives. Food processing doesn't have to be bad, but when you start getting into those chemicals that you can't pronounce, that could cause nutrient depletion. So I'm going to talk a lot about nutrients today because I feel like that's a topic that we don't know too much about. We know a lot about macronutrients, which is carbohydrate, proteins, and fat, the fuel for our body. But what we don't know as much about is micronutrients, which is like the vitamins and the minerals and the plant compounds and the antioxidants and the little things that really give your body not just fuel, but information to run the way it's supposed to run. And I always try to have you imagine if you're sitting in a chemistry class. I don't know if anyone has, I know Genevieve has. There's for the Krebs cycle, which is like how your body deals with the energy when it eats it. There's a lot of nutrients involved, like magnesium and chromium. And if any of those are deficient, your body's not going to run as smoothly. So micronutrients are important. We'll be going over that. I want to do a little bit of a little very easy quiz on what's processed, what's minimally processed, and what's very processed. So this is a baked potato, minimally processed. It was baked, some butter was put on it, and that's it. This, believe it or not, is also considered minimally processed. And that's because when you look at the ingredients, it's everything you can pronounce, except for citric acid, which is a very common preservative, and it is a safe preservative. It's not just a preservative, but it's also a flavor enhancer. But everything else is, and it doesn't have to be organic to be minimally processed. I just picked this one because it had the least ingredients. So this I would consider minimally processed, as opposed to McDonald's French fries, which is heavily processed. The ingredient list is a lot longer, but not just that. There's a lot of words there that do not equal food, real food. Hydrogenated oil is when a liquid oil is made into a solid oil by adding hydrogen, where trans fats are produced. Here's another example of a heavily processed food. Again, a lot of ingredients. As you go down to the end of the ingredient list, you have a lot of food dyes, because who wants to eat a white potato? It needs to be like a nice looking yellow potato because of the cheese. So there's food dyes, and there's the citric acid again, but there's other chemicals as well. Obviously not processed. Minimally processed, so this is a snack. If you look at the ingredient list, there's 2 ingredients, apples and cinnamon. So I consider that very minimally processed. This is actually moderately processed because there's a little bit more going on here. If you look at the ingredient list, it is long, but actually in this case, it's long, but there's a lot of real ingredients in it. The color is made from real food extracts, and there's no added sugar. So it's a fair choice, as opposed to heavily processed of the same type of a snack. In this case, the ingredient list is actually shorter than the previous moderately processed food. It's important to read the ingredients because of that reason, and start familiarizing yourself with, what is in here. So you can see the dyes. You can see the, dextrose and the monoglycerides. The first ingredient is a manufactured sweetener made from corn syrup. And the color, like I said before, is made from dyes. So how do we start looking for going to a cleaner eating program? First is to just identify what is heavily processed and minimally processed and get to know your ingredient list. Sometimes people focus too much on the nutrition fact label, which is very important, especially if you are looking for specific restrictions like a sodium restriction, or if you're looking for calcium, or if you're looking at calories, very important. But the ingredient list, I think, is just as, if not more important. So you want to just start substituting minimally processed foods for heavily processed foods. And as I showed you, there are plenty of options. We just have to find them. Once you start, a lot of my patients have expressed to me that once they start eating the less processed foods, really the taste really changes for the better. This is a plate a lot of dietitians have in their little, picture catalog, and it's called the typical American plate or the standard American diet, which acronym is SAD. It's very high in protein and fat, and look at the tiny little vegetables in there. So it's heavy in animal proteins, heavy in carbohydrates, heavy in fat, and very little micronutrients, which are usually in the vegetables. This is a healthy eating plate. It was created by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. 75% of this plate is plants. It's fruits, vegetables, and grains. Evidence shows that 75% is the minimum percentage of plants needed to consume to achieve health benefits. Your plate can be up to 100% plants. This is just showing a little bit more balance. Plants are rich not only in those micronutrients that I was telling you about, but also in fiber. 25% of this plate is protein, like an animal protein, usually a lean protein. Healthy fats are on the side, and just as important, because those fats really do help absorb fat-soluble vitamins, and fat is very important for your brain and for your organs, and it's not something that I like to limit too much. I just make sure it's the healthier fat, avoiding the trans fats. All three macronutrients, the proteins, carbohydrates, and fat, are present in balance on this plate. And eating in this pattern throughout the day may be the key for eating less, getting less chances of having a disease. So this is a well-studied, well-documented plate. And I'm going to show you another plate. This is the American Institute of Cancer Research plate, and it's very similar. The portions are just a little bit different, but the plants are there. You can see like half of the plate is plants, and the lean protein and the complex carbohydrate. And the only reason why I'm showing you this model is because it's nice that the research from different institutions show the same thing, that plants are really the key to chronic disease prevention, including cancer. So we're going to put this plate structure, and we're going to try to figure out how to get there. Let's do it. So let's look at the kitchen. Let's make it easier for you to make good choices. So the refrigerator is well stocked with fresh fruits, vegetables, and meats. And the key to making it easier for yourself, especially during the week, is to just chop, cut. As soon as you go to the supermarket, bring it home, start chopping and cutting. If you have the time, maybe you're going on the weekend, set aside some time, and just so that you have it ready to go to either make into a salad, to saute, to roast. But the chopping and the cleaning is a big time saver if you do it ahead of time. You can also buy pre-cut vegetables and fruits. Your freezer is a really great place to store single serving meals if that's what you need. You can, freeze leftovers, or even freezing fruits just for, the future for smoothies. A couple of tips on freezing. If you freeze berries, first freeze them on a cookie sheet and then put them in the bag, or else they'll kind of clump together and they'll be hard to separate. Same thing with bananas. The other thing is if you're freezing like chicken, let's say chicken breast or some other meats like that, you want to freeze them flat so that you'll have more room in the freezer so you can stand them upright. Then there's your pantry. Organize your pantry so you don't forget about staples. I love mason jars. They're clear and you can put your nuts and your seeds, your granola, your rice, your carbohydrates. What I do is I buy chalk paint and put a little label on it and then just, quickly label it, and then you could change it out very easily. Countertops are like, talk about marketing before, but countertops are a great marketing piece for you to eat healthy, you and your family to eat healthy. So obviously we're going to want to put the healthy things on the counter, like some fruits, cut up vegetables, some nuts and seeds, and the things that maybe aren't so healthy, we probably best to put them behind closed doors so they're not in your view and you have to really think about it if you want it. Here's a grocery store tour that we're going to take. Most grocery stores have the same kind of format where the perimeter, and you might have heard this before too, shop the perimeter. And that's because the perimeter has the fresh food. It's got the produce, it's got the eggs and dairy case, and we'll go through all this, the meat section, the deli section, the bakery, and then the aisles in between. It doesn't mean don't shop there. It just means pay more attention to the ingredient label when you do shop there. And we'll go over that. So let's hit the produce aisle first. And really, when you look at your cart, when you're about to check out, you want to look and see about 50% of your cart to be fruits and vegetables. That would be ideal, because that your plate is 50% vegetables for an ideal diet. So your cart should be 50% as well. These foods contain phytochemicals. They contain fiber. They contain lots of important micronutrients. The leafy greens are notable for B vitamins, vitamin K, and specifically a folate, which is a B vitamin. Then you want bright orange vegetables and fruits like sweet potatoes, red peppers, oranges. They're important for your carotenoids, your vitamin A. And then cruciferous, which on this chart, the broccoli and the kale is a cruciferous vegetable, but there's so many more. There's cauliflower, there's Brussels sprouts, there's bok choy, there's arugula, there's cabbage. The family is big, and I usually recommend at least one serving from this family a day because of their very important immune building properties, because of their liver detoxifying properties, their cancer preventative properties. They have really important micronutrients that do help with all this. I usually like to recommend some kind of berry also because it's one of the higher antioxidant foods. Citrus for vitamin C through citrus, oranges, kiwi, and even berries have a lot of vitamin C. And then bananas and other, I consider those great, not just for potassium. Everybody knows they're high in potassium, but the bananas that are not so ripe are considered prebiotics, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, but that is really important for gut health. So prebiotics, other prebiotics are onions, leeks, cabbage, something called Jerusalem artichokes, or another word for that is sunchokes. And these are all really important for gut health. So essentially it feeds your probiotics, your good gut bacteria. So a more diverse starchy intake from like fruits and vegetables and whole grains is a healthier microbiome, a healthier gut. Some produce shopping tips: choose produce that is fresh and firm with unwilted leaves, smooth, without blemishes, bruises, or off colors. Produce in season is more likely to be at peak flavors, freshness, and definitely on sale. But if it's not in season, it doesn't mean you shouldn't buy it. Just maybe a lot of people ask me, is frozen okay? Frozen is excellent because the fruit or vegetable is picked and frozen right away. So it retains its nutritional profile really well. And some people don't like frozen vegetables the way they, defrost, but it's a great option for nutrients. Here's the refrigerated aisle where we are going to look for some kind of a milk, eggs, yogurt, things like that. This is a good place to get your calcium source. And it doesn't mean it has to be dairy. It could be a plant milk. Most plant milks and alternative yogurts, like dairy-free yogurts, are fortified with calcium and vitamin D. So it's still a really great option. For milks, consider the milk fat if you are going to have a cow's milk. Maybe a doctor had advised you to go low fat, so you kind of want to look at the fat. I don't usually recommend low fat milks. If you are going to have a dairy milk, I think the whole fat actually is better because it does have a few more extra nutrients in it, and the fat in the milk has not been shown to increase cholesterol or other, heart or cardiac issues. But there's so many plant milks out there that you can certainly find one that can fit your needs. If you're looking for a plant milk that most resembles cow's milk in terms of like calories and protein, that would be soy milk, because that is a complete protein and doesn't have to have any additives really to make it a little bit more like whole milk, the nutrients anyway. But you've probably seen there's so many now. There's soy, there's oat, there's rice, there's almond, there's cashew. I heard they're coming out with a pumpkin milk. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but a pumpkin milk is on its way. Eggs are great. Eggs are very versatile. They can be eaten for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. They're actually a really great protein source, and we call it a HBV protein, which means a high biological value protein, because in fact, the egg protein is what is compared for this high biological protein. So it's considered one of the better proteins out there. Free range means that it must be produced. So I like to go over labels a little bit because I know people get confused. So free range means that it must be produced by hens that are able to roam in indoor houses and have access to fresh food and water and be outdoors. Pasture raised means no industry-wide regulations on this term. So it's kind of one of those marketing terms. But usually it means that they're grazing outside, the chickens, and have access to all sorts of food sources. Organic is regulated. It's fed organic feed and follows the USDA organic standards, no antibiotics, non-GMO. And then there's cage-free, which is laid by hens that are able to roam, does not require natural lighting and airflow, and it does not require outdoor access. So I know that's a lot to drink in, but you should know what these mean. Some of them are just marketing tools. Yogurt. So yogurt is very beneficial in terms of nutrients. It does naturally have calcium and some vitamin D, not a lot, but some vitamin D. And it also has the probiotics that it's famous for. And if you are dairy free, there are plenty of alternatives. They're making them from cashew, from coconut yogurt, and they have probiotics kind of added into them, and also usually fortified with calcium and vitamin D. The meat and seafood section. So a lot of nutritional benefits with these lean proteins and even the red meat, and the HBV protein, like I discussed before, they're all pretty high in high biological proteins, and they're high in iron, they're high in zinc. They have some B vitamins, vitamin E, magnesium, and omega-3s if it is a fatty fish. So the fatty fish are things like salmon, halibut, Arctic char, trout, tuna, sardines. But people sometimes get a little confused. Shrimp and the white meats like tilapia or sole or bronzino, they're great for lean proteins, but they don't have the fatty fish profile that salmon does. A couple of shopping tips. Choose a whole bird and whole roast for better values, and pre-cut packs for convenience. And when you are shopping, make sure those go on the bottom so they don't cross-contaminate with your vegetables and your fruit. Here's the same as with the eggs. The labeling can be a little misleading or a little bit confusing, so I'm just going to quickly go over that. USDA organic means that animals are raised in living conditions accommodating their natural behaviors, like a grazing pasture. They are fed 100% organic feed and forage, and are not administered antibiotics or hormones. The term natural, the label must include a statement that what it means, because there is really no real natural statement. But it could be anything like no artificial ingredients, minimally processed, non-GMO. Grass-fed means that the animals are fed only grass and forage. These animals cannot be fed grain or any grain products. So choosing fish, very another confusing thing. A lot of my patients asked me about wild caught versus farm. It's not that one is better than the other. It really depends on the fish that you're buying. So for example, salmon is the better quality salmon would be the wild caught. But there are other fish, some of the white fishes that are better farmed. So there's two websites that I have on the bottom there. One of them is Seafood Watch, and the other one is ewg.org, which stands for environmentalworkinggroup.org. They have two really good guides on exactly this question. What should I buy if I want this kind of fish? And there's just too many to go over here, but I use it all the time. There's even a calculator in one of them where you put your height, your weight, and if you have some kind of cardiac issue, and it tells you how much you need to stay away from high mercury fishes, because we can't get away from high mercury fishes. They're there. Tuna is one of them. And so what I recommend is not having more than 1 or 2 servings of tuna a week because of the mercury content. So it's not something that you have to avoid altogether. It's just something you have to watch, and something you have to pace, really. So this next slide does show some of the higher and lower mercury content in fish. And so the first set of fish is really to avoid or have very infrequently, maybe going out to dinner a couple times a year because of the really high mercury content. Then the next group is moderate. 1 serving a week is fine. And that would be Chilean sea bass, grouper, halibut, mahi-mahi, rockfish, snapper, and certain tuna, albacore and yellowfin. And then the last group is really the best one. You can have more liberally, and those are things like anchovies, catfish, cod, crab, haddock, herring. Herring is also a fatty fish. Oyster, salmon, sardines. Sardines are really hot. Sardines and mackerel are if you like them, I know a lot of people don't really like them, but they are a nutrition powerhouse because they're really high in calcium and vitamin D. One of the few foods, actually. Then there's scallops, shrimp, tilapia, trout, freshwater trout, and canned tuna. That's the light or the skipjack. The deli section. So the deli department has a whole range of foods. Some of them are really good, and some of them are healthy. Some of them are really processed and salty. So the American Institute of Cancer Research and all of their research have declared that processed meats, like deli meats, are a cancer risk. So it's recommended that it's done infrequently. So I know that's a hard pill to swallow for some people because they do eat a lot of cold cuts, during lunch. It's a very easy thing to put together, but it's not the healthiest. So, it's just, again, it's all about how much you're doing it, the frequency of you eating these kind of foods. So you want to look for lower sodium options. Try not to buy any kind of pre-made sandwich because they'll usually put so much more meat in there. You're better off buying the meat separately. But there are some healthy options there. Like I think buying rotisserie chickens are okay to make into chicken salad sandwiches or just to have. And then buying their salads could be healthy depending on where you're going. They usually have roasted vegetables. So it's a great way to try to get some more vegetables in that are already prepared. Now we're going to go through the shelves, and I want to show you that there's actually a lot of nutrient dense, high micronutrient foods that could be found within the inner aisles. Things like whole grains, that's where they are. They're in the inner aisles. Oats, brown rice, quinoa, farro. And I was actually at ShopRite this morning, and the ShopRite in Milford, anyway, is, I don't know if you guys are from around here, but they have a really great section of different kinds of grains. So I encourage you to go and just pick one out and try it. So if you've never tried buckwheat, try it. If you've never tried barley, just try it as a side. If you've never tried sorghum, that's another great grain. It's a little hard to find, but sorghum is a great grain. It's got complete proteins. It's easy to cook, just like rice. It's got a little bit different of a texture, and you can even pop it. It's a great grain. Canned beans and legumes are actually fine. I don't have a problem with canned beans. I don't, dry is fine too, but canned, it's a lot quicker. Broths, nuts and seeds. Chia seeds, you see it there, but flaxseed is one of my favorite nutrient boosters. So that's what we consider like chia seed and flaxseed, because it's not really going to make a meal. It's usually something you put in a smoothie, yogurt, some oatmeal. These are nutrient boosters. They're like so high in protein, so high in fiber, so high in the flaxseed has the omega-3s. Chia and flax are very similar, but they have just, slightly different nutrient profiles. But they're both really good, and they fill you. They have great fiber content. Love to recommend that for everybody, really. And then there's condiments, of course, to enhance flavors, and you need that to make your food taste good. And I have a little picture of dark chocolate there because dark chocolate is actually has a lot of health components to it. It's good, really high in antioxidants and something called stearic acid that's good for your heart. So I'm a big fan of dark chocolate. Just want to go over snacks a little bit because snacks are just part of life at this point. So I wanted to show you how we can look at a snack. So snacks could be looked at as just extra calories. I mean, that's what it could be looked at, and just for fun. But snacks could also be a way to get some nutrients in. So there's a lot of cracker options now instead of just the Ritz and the saltines that don't really have a lot of nutrients in it, except for the fortified vitamins that are in the flour. But there's almond meal flour crackers. There's crackers made from whole grains and different kinds of whole grains too, that you can really up your nutrients just by switching out your cracker. There's a lot of bean flour stuff going on now too that I really like bean flour pastas and bean flour crackers, and even bean flour like chips I've seen. And so if you're going to eat a chip, yeah, why not get some protein and fiber from a bean flour chip? So then we got our soda. Soda is really bad. I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but there's alternatives. There's flavored seltzers, flavored waters. I even found something called Olipop. It's actually a great digestive aid. It has the flavor of cola and it has other flavors as well, but it kind of has the feeling of soda, but it has a lot less calories, only like 2 grams of added sugar, and it has prebiotics in it. So it's really good for your gut. And then of course, candies, switch out to some dried fruits and nuts, and the gummies, dried fruits. Read the labels though. You want to look for something with a lot of fiber. You want to look for something with the least amount of sodium and the least amount of sugar. So use that nutrition fact label. Frozen foods and vegetables are often just as fresh, if not more so, than their fresh counterparts, since they're frozen at peak ripeness and in season. They're sometimes less expensive as well. So you can have these staples. If you always want to have like a carbohydrate, corn, frozen edamame. I've gotten frozen brown rice that it cooks up really quick and delicious. Frozen cauliflower rice or frozen cauliflower, vegetable blends, butternut squash, berries for your smoothie or just as a snack. Some stores have these bulk bins, and I do like them because it's a great way to try a grain without committing to it, because a lot of these grains do get expensive, especially the fancier ones or the ones that we don't know too much about. So if your supermarket has these little bins, you could just take a tiny bit and just try it. And then if you like it, go for it. So it avoids waste. And these bins are usually more than just grains. It's also some seeds that you can try, or some nuts. They really they really can introduce you to a lot more interesting things. So now I just want to talk a little bit about kids, kids and eating. So there is a very well-known author for children and eating. She's a dietitian. Her name is Ellen Sater. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of her or bought her book. She's got a lot of books on feeding kids. And she came up with this division of responsibility, which I really found interesting. And so I just want to go over that a little bit with you. It just means that you and your child are both responsible for what they eat. And so the division is, so the parent responsibility is what foods the child is offered, because you're the cook and you're the, you go to the supermarket, when the child is fed, so when mealtime is, and where mealtime is. And the child, depending on the age, is responsible for whether they're going to eat it and how much they're going to eat it. And that's the important part, how much they're going to eat it. So just think about that, and think about like that kind of frees you up in stress about, what your kid is eating, because Ellen Sater says that if this works correctly, they should intuitively know how much to eat and if they should eat it. And then of course, family mealtime routine is really important, having a place for just gathering and eating. Try and try again refers mostly to vegetables, because I know a lot of kids don't like a lot of vegetables, but always offer it. It should always be there so that they will eventually, hopefully, try it. No bribes. So I know I've done it before myself, but it's pretty important to try not to do one of those. If you eat vegetables, you can have dessert, because then you're calling one food good and another food bad, and all foods are foods. And instead of good and bad, I like to use the term sometimes and always. So a vegetable or a protein or any like kind of a dinner meal is an always food. You can always eat this. But a dessert, ice cream, candy, cookies is a sometimes food. So think about those kind of words when you're, talking to kids. And that goes for the no forbidden food. So there's no good or bad. There's just a sometimes or always. Some of the things that you can do to try to get your kids involved with, cooking. The recipe that I have on the cooking demo is pretty easy. Depending on the child's age, you can have them right next to you and doing most of it. So getting kids involved in cooking, and even like setting the table and cleaning up, just to get them into the habit of that, just so that they're part of it. They're part of the whole, mealtime thing. Theme meals I always found fun, and I think the kids really like it. Sometimes you can ask your kids what they're learning in school and make a theme out of that, whether it's like a cultural thing or a timepiece kind of a thing. And gardening. Gardening is a great way to get your kids to really see that it just doesn't come from the supermarket. It actually comes from the ground, or from wherever it comes from. I found this great website. It's called backtotheroots.com. And they have great kid starter kits that like mushrooms and herbs and a lot of vegetables that they can just start at home. So they can actually just start seeing, like the seeds and how it propagates and how it starts growing. So you can really have fun with that. So this is the good cooking demo. This is the oatmeal breakfast bars, it's called. So let's watch it and then we'll talk. That, you know what, I have to apologize. I had two other slides in there. I don't know what happened to them that just briefly talked about a little bit of research and how nutrients can affect like neuropsychiatric symptoms. And so I'm just going to talk about it. I'm so sorry. So exactly that. The studies recently are showing, not just recently, but for a couple of years now, are showing that nutrient deficiencies. So that's why I really stress the processed foods to avoid, because those are the ones that are not going to give you the nutrients you need. And getting nutrients from whole foods is the best. There is supplementation, and I do recommend supplementation when people, kids, adults aren't eating enough fruits and vegetables. But really, it coming from fruits and vegetables, because of the synergy, because of everything it kind of comes with, is really important. So I did want to stress that nutrients are really important for everyone, and especially for autistic kids. The other thing is that I know the gluten-free, casein-free diet has been around for a really long time, but there is research showing that it could be helpful. And of course, they always end it with saying more research needs to be done. But you know what? It's if you see improvement, there's a lot of resources now. It's a lot easier to do it now than it was 20 years ago. So I can help you with that. I have two kids with celiac disease, so that's the gluten-free part of it. So I am an expert. So if anyone needs any help with that, I'm ready to go. So I'm going to stop sharing, and would love to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for an amazing presentation. This was really, really good. We're super excited for our families and what they've learned today. So I'm going to open it up, and if people have questions, I have some few questions on my own that I want to ask. Anybody has questions for Deb?
Okay, I have a question. I just wondered, like, what's the recommended age now? Like, I saw that the recipe that had the almond butter and stuff. What is the recommended age to start introducing? Like, I have a 1.5-year-old. How do I, like, what age is recommended now to introduce allergens to her? Because I'm always like terrified she's going to have a reaction.
No, you're right. I would go really by what your pediatrician is saying, because yeah, but yeah, so that's not really my population, so I don't know their latest research on that, but I know it's changed. I think sometimes they recommend to do it a little earlier because of
I've heard that too, but
yeah,
I just
I don't have any, right.
really
I don't feel comfortable like telling you to start giving your kid so your child has not eaten any nuts yet? No peanuts or almonds? Yeah, I would ask a pediatrician.
Okay, thank you.
Good question though.
All right, Ronka, you have your hand up.
Hi, thank you very much for this. So I have a quick question about the celiac disease. So how do you know if your child has some symptoms for celiac?
So the thing with celiac disease is that, yes, you can have a lot of people present with gastrointestinal symptoms like gas, bloat, diarrhea, constipation. But there's also a silent celiac, and I know that from experience because I have two kids. One of them had symptoms and one of them did not. So if you have a suspicion, it's the first thing you can do is ask your doctor to draw some blood work and ask for a celiac panel. And what they'll do is just test antibodies. Now they do have to have gluten in their system to so the lab can pick up the antibodies. There's another genetic test that you can ask for, and that's usually used for not for diagnosing, but if that's negative, then you can be like pretty sure that they'll never have celiac disease, because celiac disease can pop up anytime in your life, not just when you're young or when you're like a teenager, anytime in your life. It's like one of those genetic factors that like the environment can kind of turn on this gene. So if you do have suspicions, I would ask your doctor first thing just to draw a celiac panel so you can see antibodies. But like I said before, they have to be eating some form of gluten for it to be detected. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Deb? All right. So you talked a little bit about cross-contamination. You said when you're cutting up, be careful about, what does that mean? Can you explain that a little?
Yeah. So, well, so you're not talking about for celiac disease, right? For gluten, you're talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
for meats.
Yeah,
Oh,
for me, and
for
for
meats.
me, yeah.
Yeah. So when you go food shopping, I think I mentioned it with the food shopping. When you go food shopping and you buy your meats, just you want them to be on the bottom so nothing's dripping. None of the meat juices are dripping onto your fresh produce. And same for when you get home, two separate cutting boards, or really wash them well in between. And a lot of people like rinse their chickens. And I don't recommend that at all. I mean, it's pretty clean. You're going to be cooking it anyway. But once you rinse it, like the raw stuff goes like all over your sink. And then, unless you're really scrubbing out your sink, it could contaminate something else that you're washing in your sink. So I recommend do not rinse your chicken. Do
Oh,
you
wow.
rinse your chicken?
Yeah, I usually do. I guess I didn't know that not to do that.
I know a lot of people do it, and I guess intuitively you want to rinse any, but you're cooking it, so it's okay.
That's a very good point. My other question was, you talked about the fish, and I think I must have missed it when you talk about wild caught versus farmed.
Yeah.
What's the benefit of farmed versus, or I don't know which one?
So like I said on that slide, it depends on the fish.
I see.
So, and they each have their very specific guidelines. So I used salmon for an example. Salmon has been shown to have higher omega-3 content and less mercury when it's wild caught.
Mm.
So I do recommend, it is a little bit more expensive. So what I do is when it goes on sale, I buy a lot of it and I throw it in the freezer.
Wow, that's smart.
But there's other fish that is actually better to buy farmed.
Really? So
yes.
Tilapia, is that better farmed or wild caught?
Because it's not in front of me, but I think it's better farmed. I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh, interesting.
So we, and I hate to be a downer because I don't want to, but we meaning humans, have really messed up like our food supply, especially fish. So I'm afraid to see in the future like what's going to happen to our fish, because fish is such a great source of protein, and it's a lean source, and omega-3s, that it would be really devastating if we were too afraid to eat it.
Wow, that's interesting. No,
so with anything that you're buying, try to get the best quality that you can afford, really. So that's why the wild caught, or I refer to the environmental working group, which I gave you that website on the bottom of that mercury list. It also does compare conventional fruits and vegetables to organic fruits and vegetables and the pesticide content. And every year they do it. So every year they come up with a list. It's called the Dirty Dozen. And then I'm sure you guys know it. And then the Clean 15. So I don't recommend buy everything organic. I mean, you could, of course, but it's not always feasible. It's expensive and you can't always find it. So what I usually like to recommend is use that list to your advantage and look at that list. If your family, just for an example, my family eats a lot of apples. They love apples. So they eat a lot of apples. We're always buying apples. And apples happens to usually be on the high pesticide list. So I do spend the extra money to buy the organic apples. And now versus 5 years ago, it's not that more expensive, especially if you go to Trader Joe's or something like that. So you make your decision for your family. If you're eating a lot of berries, let's say, like if every day you're eating berries, then most of the time you should probably be buying them organic because they're always high in pesticides. But avocados, bananas, they're always low. So save your money, buy conventional.
Wow, that's really insightful, because I was going to ask you the question about organic foods. Are we supposed to be just, because a lot of us with kids who are, impacted by autism, that they're very sensitive about the red dyes and all these things. And so a lot of us push to minimize amount of contamination because a lot of them have challenges with digestion.
That's right.
So if whatever we can keep it as clean as possible, we try. So from what I'm hearing you say is that you don't necessarily have to buy organic for everything. Just probably go with this Dirty Dozen list.
Yeah, it's a great list. I can send, I'll send it to you and then you can send it to everybody. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be great, because I think it will save a lot of us our pocket, because
100%.
Once I realized that healthy eating, so even though Nicholas was gluten-free, casein-free, And that's because he was extremely sensitive to dairy and extremely sensitive to casein. He's not tested as celiac, but we noted a big difference when he's exposed
Yeah,
to.
I mean, there's so many other diagnoses now that aren't celiac. Non-sensitive gluten sensitivity, that's a big one. And I believe it. You don't have to have celiac disease for your body to respond negatively, inflammatorily to gluten. Gluten and dairy just happen to be inflammatory for a lot of people, not just, celiacs. And, so yeah, it's one of my go-tos when someone comes in with like gastrointestinal issues. Well, let's just take this out for a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's not just the gut. It's not just the gut, as you can see. It's also your brain, and it's also your joints, and it's also anything related to inflammation, really.
right. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that anti-inflammatory diet, since you just make a comment about that?
Yeah.
People throw that words around a little bit. Can you just share a little bit about what that is?
Great question. Yes. So it's similar to the Mediterranean diet, which I'm going to explain also. So it's based on trying to decrease the inflammatory foods and environment that around you. So the anti-inflammatory diet is going to be things like healthy fats, like omega-3s. So it's going to be using olive oil and no, I usually don't like to recommend any kind of vegetable oils like corn oil or canola oil or seed oils, because those are inflammatory. They're higher in omega-6s. So in the fatty acid world, there's omega-3, 6, 9. Omega-3s are, right, so the ratio omega-3 to omega-6 pre-industrial time was 1-to-1. Then it was like 1-to-5, and they think 1-to-4, 1-to-5 is like healthy, right? Now it's 1-to-20, which is and it's really because of all the processed foods we eat. Because even if you're eating a natural or organic potato chip, most of the time, because olive oil and avocado oil is very expensive, it's going to have sunflower oil or canola oil, and that's okay in small amounts. That's 100%. You need omega-6s. It's the ratio that's bad in Americans. So I do a micronutrient test. I did it out myself, and it measures that exact ratio. And mine was actually high, and I'm not surprised. I think every American's is high just because of the way we eat. So I started really looking at. I used to really like chips, and I still like chips. But most of the chips that I was buying, even though they were organic, they were made with sunflower oil. So that's one big change that I made. I don't have as many. And when I do buy the ones that have, they're more expensive, but that makes me not eat as much. So that's good. They're avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil. So the anti-inflammatory diet is trying for that ratio, trying to decrease that omega-6, 9 ratio and increase the omega-3s. And that's by eating more fatty fish, using better oils, and then eating a lot of anti-inflammatory foods like fruits and vegetables and whole grains.
Wow, that's a great answer. So the oils, I'm glad you went there. So what I'm hearing you say is olive oil, but I read somewhere a long time ago, and so I stopped buying it, but that once you cooked with it, it no longer had the same benefit. So is that a myth, or does that?
No, it's science. So olive oil's smoke point, which means like how high it can be heat up without it going rancid, is low. They say it's low, but it's not that low. It's about 400, 450, something like that. So if you're doing you can even saute in olive oil because you're not going up that high. But if you're baking that high, or if you're frying, then you definitely want a more stable oil, which would be avocado oil or coconut oil. So it's not. I think it's a great oil, and putting it on salads or I bake a lot, and I use those kind of oils for baking.
Got it.
If it in the 300 range,
Wow, Deb, you're so full of information. I'm just like, okay, absorbing it all now. So what I'm hearing you say is that avoid the canola oils, the sunflower oils, because that's where I went to. then move towards, I know, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to my kitchen right now and
That's
see
okay.
all the stuff.
No, listen.
No, but this is great because that's why we're learning,
But
right?
this is also, I don't want to make you feel bad either. So.
No.
Okay.
This is learning, because then you get so confused about, okay, some people say this is good, which is not good. There's like, do safflower oil, don't do. So I was doing olive oil for a while. So, it's like, I didn't know that I'm not supposed to do that. Coconut oil, I love it, but some of my kids don't like coconut. So
yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So, but an avocado oil is something I've never tried before. So you're saying that that's a stable oil to use for some of us that still do fried stuff that are not so great for us.
Yeah, we do fried once in a while too, and we use avocado oil. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but this is great. So going back to the omega or 3 versus omega 6 ratio, what is supposed to be the ratio?
1 to 4.
1 to 4. For every 1 omega 3 to 4 omega 6, is that it? Or I have it reversed?
No, you have it right. The omega 3 1 and omega 6 4. But I just want you to start thinking about it and slowly get to that, not to get like that overnight, because that's going to be hard. So that one great way is to change your oils. Another great way is to increase those fruits and vegetables, even if you have to do it through smoothies,
Very good. There was a question in our chat in our Zoom room. How many servings of mackerel is required every week for kids?
Of mackerel?
Yeah.
The fish?
Yes.
It's not required, but it's a great option if they like it. I wish I liked it. I don't. But so I like to recommend any fatty fish, including mackerel, 2 to 3 servings a week. And usually if they can get 2 to 3 servings a week, you don't really need to supplement with an omega-3 fatty acid supplement, which, a lot of us are taking. So I take it because I probably only get about 1 fatty fish serving a week because my family isn't a big fan. So I do it on my own. But if I was eating a lot more, I probably would stop taking my fish oil supplement.
Okay, got it. Well, you've been a wealth of information and a lot of education that we received from you this afternoon. Thank you so much. Any last questions for Deb that you guys have? No? I know I'm definitely going to tap your brain to come back because I want to even just go into the vitamins and minerals and
I can do a whole lesson on just specific nutrients. I thought today would be great just to kind of get you started on like just changing some habits. That's all.
No, you
reading labels, like just get started. But yeah, nutrients are like one of my favorite things to talk about. I love talking about nutrients and where to get them and how to get them and how much to get them.
Well, you just committed yourself now.
Okay.
You
see you next month.
Exactly. This is how I usually get people to say yes to stuff. I'm like, but no, it's really a wealth of information. I know my families and the people watching. I just loved even how you even designed going to the grocery store, coming through the way you walk in. And I think Whole Food does it that way because I've seen that when I enter into Whole Foods, it automatically brings you into, not that I'm promoting them per se, but I'm just mentally thinking about
the produce section, right?
Yeah,
right?
The produce section. Yep. Like you immediately walk through that route.
Yeah.
And so to your point, walking in through that way forces you to not think about, okay, you know what, I need to make my plate more colorful and making sure that the elements are in there. So I know that's
and also not to promote Whole Foods because I don't work for them, but they do one thing right. And that's they make it really interesting. They make you want to like, let me try that because their displays are great. Another tip just to get like inspired, and it's getting a little late for it, but you can still catch some. Farmers markets are excellent, especially if you go to a good one. And I don't know where everybody lives, but I go all the way to Ramsey because they have one of the best ones in the area. And they have 1 or 2 vegetable and fruit stands, all organic, and things that I don't usually see. I mean, it's fun. And then they tell you how to cook it. It's really fun. So that's a great way to get inspired to eat more vegetables.
Wow. That's what I would say. So you guys can see why I said Deb is one of those brilliant people that I know. But
Just passionate, not brilliant.
well, it's brilliant. See, I know you're being that from that perspective. A lot of research that you've done and a lot of work in this area. So we want to say thank you for your,
You're welcome.
giving up Sunday afternoon to teach us a lot about, in building a healthy kitchen. I'm definitely going to make sure that my kitchen is reflective of the way my body should be functioning, which
Excellent.
is healthy. So we want to say thank you for participating with us. And those of you watching us, we want to say thank you. We will share a link to the participants who are here today just to give us feedback, other topics that you want us to present and learn more about. Our goal is to really continue to educate, our goal to inspire, and above all, to ensure that we're all living a healthy lifestyle. So on behalf of the MyGo family, thank you, Deb. I will be seeing you at work in the other at Holy Name, and want to say thank you for everyone who had joined us this afternoon. So we'll send the link around so you guys can give us your feedback. So once again, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you've been blessed and you've learned a lot from this conversation. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye-bye.